Evening, everybody. And first of all, thanks, Constanza, for allowing me the opportunity to come and talk to the group about our current LAWPRO Catchment Support Fund. My name is Basil Mannion. I'm with LAWPRO since it started in 2017. So I've worked as a community water officer in the Midlands and also as a senior community water officer in the last few years. And just recently, in the last couple of weeks, I've moved into the funding officer role. You will all know Siobhan Thompson. So Siobhan has moved on to greener pastures. So I'm taking up the role, just trying to get my feet under the desk here in the funding role with LAWPRO. So big shoes to fill. So look, I won't delay tonight. I'm just here to talk about the launch of our Catchment Support Fund. We've had it on the go for the last 2 years, and this is the third year of it. Just a little bit of background. It came initially as a recommendation from the findings of the Resilience Project report, which again, if anybody is interested in that's available on our website. I won't go into too much detail on it now, but also in terms of developing the Catchment Support Fund based on feedback from catching groups and community groups, and also internal reviews of LAWPRO and the Community Water Development Fund and where that could link in with additional funding as well. So that's the background to it. I suppose it was a new funding stream that was introduced in 2024. So there was €500,000 available in funding in 2024. That increased last year to 880,000 from the Department of Housing, Local Government and Heritage. And it's for grant funding to groups focusing on, I suppose, a water focus within a catchment scale relevant scenario there. So NGO groups across the country. And the purpose overall is to build the capacity of water quality focused NGOs up and down the country, which hopefully it's trying to achieve, and we try and improve it every year as we go on. Originally, it was modelled on a similar funding stream run by the Heritage Council. You may be aware of the Heritage Organisation Support Fund. So the main nuts and bolts of the Catchment Support Fund, it hasn't changed in this regard. Stream 1 of the fund focuses on grants towards insurance, legal costs, accounting fees, organisational promotional material, website costs, group development activities. And Stream 2, as we like to call it, grants funding towards organisations' core costs, including staff costs, project development officers, administrative staff, etc., etc. And I might go into a little bit more detail on that later on. So just a look back at last year in terms of the applications we received in Stream 1, we received 21 applications last year. Stream 2 only, we received 5. And then a combination of Stream 1 and 2, we received 18. So 44 in total. And as you can see, the amount sought came in over 1 million. So we granted out just like, I suppose, slightly less than that in terms of the overall figures. Again, if you look at a geographical spread based on last year, we had the border with 11 applications, the Midlands and East with 7, the South East had 7, Southwest had the most at 12, the West had 6, and we had National as well coming in at 1. So that made up the 44 applications. So if we could get something similar, if not more this year, it would be great. As I mentioned, the fund was launched last Monday, the 13th of October. The closing date for applications are a few weeks away on the 17th of November 2025, and then we go through the usual screening scenario, request for additional information, analysis. There'll be an internal evaluation by LAWPRO the week of the 12th of January, and an external evaluation, obviously, which is required with staff from IFI, EPA and the department. That's also the week of the 19th of January. And then I suppose the key date there, in and around mid-November, yet to be finalised for the final report and drawdown forms, which is, I suppose, similar to the current fund and the Community Water Development Fund. So November 2026, it seems a long time away, but I suppose it's not overly so. I suppose just to mention and highlight the main changes to the Catchment Fund Support Fund compared to last year. Obviously, the main change is that we've brought it forward. So we're now launching it ahead of the Community Water Development Fund. So new dates are there. And I suppose the purpose of that is to allow the larger, more impactful catchment scale groups to put better plans in place where they can outline what they intend to do through applying for the Community Water Development Fund, whereas last year the Community Water Development Fund launched before the Catchment Support Fund. So I suppose we've had a look at it, we've listened to feedback, and we've realigned them this year. Also, there's a new requirement in it for not alone a work plan for 2026, but for what we're calling a forecasted work plan for 2027. And the purpose of this is for groups to provide indicative I suppose, ideas and plans for projects that they would like to see happen following on from their work in 2026, leading into 2027. So we're looking for indicative and estimated costs and details on, I suppose, second and third phases of what groups will be involved in 2026. And really what it allows us to do, I suppose, with our funding, we get funding on an annual basis from the department, and we have consistently raised the need for multi-annual funding for community groups to have security of what they're trying to do on the ground. So this is one way of us trying to, I suppose, get facts and figures in advance that we can take to the department and say, look at, these groups are looking to carry out this work in 2027 and really look for more funding. So it's something that hopefully will help us to help community groups. Also, there's an inclusion there for eligible resources allocated to and associated with the fulfilling of any roles within the catchment community fora. We have the 5 pilots set up around the country. So fulfilling the roles, for example, of chairperson of secretary or secretary, where there's time resources or financial resources affecting the groups involved in these catchment community fora, that there would be the possibility to claim those back through the catchment support fund. So that's something new, and we think it's something positive there as well. And also there's a greater emphasis on focusing actions in what we're trying to do on water quality pressure. So linking water quality pressures with water bodies on the implemented or the proposed implemented actions and measures that a group are looking at. I suppose linking in with catchment science and all that on the science side. So I suppose who can apply? It's very similar to last year. Not-for-profit, non-governmental organisations based in the Republic of Ireland with a clear focus on protecting or restoring water quality, but also north-south collaborations. Just once the lead organisation is based in the Republic of Ireland, they're eligible as well and quite free to apply. Who can't apply? Similarly, again to last year, private companies, individuals, public organisations who receive operational funding from other sources, example, tidy towns, group water schemes, and groups that receive membership fees may not qualify for all of Stream 1 funding. But again, we can talk to any groups that are in that situation. And I should say that on the portal, the guidelines are linked. The guidelines have been updated and revised, and hopefully they'll be easy to follow. But they're heavily linked on the portal, on the application form. When you go on, you'll see links there to the guidelines, so they're readily available. Just in terms of Stream 1, we talked about the smaller stream. So the applicant requirement here is, I suppose, a bank account and constitution, must have a water quality focus, must have, I suppose, engaged with LAWPRO in some shape or form over the last while. A priority will be given to, similar to last year, groups that work in blue dot areas, PAAs, areas for action led by others. And again, the organisation must relate to one or more of the objectives set out in the Water Action Plan. And groups should again try to demonstrate that they're trying to link measures and actions to associated water quality pressures. So the eligible costs again will be similar to last year, covering statutory or legal responsibilities, training and other capacity building costs. Obviously, we want to try and empower groups to improve themselves and help themselves to get better. Auditing and accounting fees, insurance costs, website development, maintenance and setup, organisation and promotional materials, group development activities, and again the reference to resources allocated to and associated with the fulfilling of any roles within a catchment community fora in any of the 5 pilots that are out there at the moment. And just to say that the grants from last year range from €480 to €5,000 in this Stream 1. So just on Stream 2 then, what's required of the applicants there? Again, similarly, must be a CLG and not controlled by any state or other body. There's a requirement to have no payment to directors. Again, a track record with LAWPRO. Proven delivery in water quality improvement projects. Satisfactory delivery of this Catchment Support Fund work plan just gone by in 2025. Demonstrated catchment relevance. Organisational work plan, which again links to the Water Action Plan, the forecasted work plan, which I mentioned earlier on there, and the purpose of the organisation must be to try to relate to the objectives in the Water Action Plan. And again, there's priority given to groups and associations working in blue dot areas, PAAs, areas for assessment, etc. And I suppose the eligible cost then, funding towards your organisation core costs. Core costs can include obviously staff salaries, rent, rates and all associated with that. Costs to help your organisation be more resilient in the future. Example would be looking at visioning, strategic plans, helping with business plans, corporate governance, all that kind of tricky stuff. Risk management reviews and piloting new ways of working. So any ideas there that groups will have can be included under that. Training and skill development costs, which will help a group. Costs associated with hiring of newer contract staff to help deliver organisations' work programme. And again, resources where there's a financial requirement or a time requirement to cover involvement in a catchment community for it if that arises. Again, in the example there of the chairperson or the secretary role there. And just looking back at last year, grants again ranged from just over €9,000 to just under €52,000 in 2025. And we'd expect something similar again in terms of the funding we're getting from the department or hoping to get. So just some of the ineligible costs, obviously project related activities would be mainly covered by the Community Water Development Fund or the Small Fund Scheme. Purchasing of equipment again, surveys, citizen science, invasive species, cameras and equipment. Again, some of those would be covered by the Community Water Development Fund. So one fund will lead into the other. So we're hoping that all requirements will be covered between the different funding streams that we have. So again, the assessment criteria is very similar, and again, it's all outlined in the guidelines and in parts of the portal application form as well. So internal review and recommendation, senior management approval, and you can see the different assessment criteria there in the marking scheme allocated to them. For stream 2, again, it's internal review and shortlisting. Then it's for transparency, it's review by an external panel, and then senior management approval of the recommended applications for the Catchment Support Fund 2026. And you can see the different criteria there and the marking scheme. And again, that's all outlined in the revised guidelines as well, which are readily available and which I will share with Constanza after, along with the presentation, and that can be given out to members as well. Just a little checklist then. You would have been familiar with this from last year. All the usual suspects there, including the newly required forecasted work plan for 2027 at number 6. And then we have a couple of extra template forms that are available. They're included in the guidelines, but they're also linked to the website through the portal in Word format. So groups can download them and use them as rough work templates that they can fill out. And they're readily available there to download in Word format, so they can be manipulated to put in your data and your different information there in terms of your template activity report, your cost of work plan for 2026, and very similarly that sample forecasted cost of work plan that we mentioned for 2027. So there's a lot of similarity between those two plans there. Again, a lot of detail there in the outcomes. The funded organisation will become more resilient, and the possible actions to try and achieve that. That's again similar to last year. A wider range of stakeholders and state bodies will be engaged with via your work, and again the possible actions there to try and help achieve that, they're outlined in the guidelines as well. Outreach and mobilisation and the capacity to deliver. So I suppose we want LAWPRO funding to assist you to develop capacity in the following areas, and it outlines those there. And again, these were all included in the assessment process and the application guidelines last year as well. Work plan considerations. The funded organisation will be more skilled and confident and diverse, and just a little brief, I suppose, understanding how that can be achieved with the group. We have our community water officers. They're still scattered all over the country, and they're ready and willing to help any groups with filling out the form or any questions that arise. We have a few new additional staff coming on board or have arrived on board. We have Donncha Ryan there. You can see him in the top right hand corner. He's now covering Meath and Offaly. We lost Cahill Flood, unfortunately, to bigger and greener pastures. But Donncha is hitting the ground running over the last couple of weeks. And also we have David Quinn there covering Westmeath and Longford. And David is based in Longford, and Donncha is based with me in Tullamore. So that again, though, our contact details are all available on the website, and the guys are more than happy to help groups if they have any queries or just if they're confused or worried about anything in terms of filling out the form. I suppose the main points, the summary details would be the deadline for filling out the application process online and getting it submitted would be the 17th of November. That's a Wednesday as far as I can remember. Now I've changed the time. It used to be 5 o'clock, but I've dropped it back to 11:30 at night to allow people maybe an extra few hours to get. I know we can all tend to leave things to the last minute, so 11:30 on that Wednesday evening, just before midnight is the time now. So hopefully that'll allow a little bit more leeway for people. And again, there's links there, and I'll share this presentation with Constanza, how to register on the LAWPRO grants portal. There's a video there for that. There's links there to the actual application portal on the site as well, and there's a link there to the guidelines as well. So those links should be active, and I'll circulate the actual documents as well after the presentation this evening. That's the front cover of the portal you will see when you go in, and if you click on the download there at the top, again you can access the guidelines, and you can see the link there on the second blue line for all the different tables that come out in Word format, so you should be able to access those pretty readily. And again, the deadline there of the 17th of November and the closing time of 11:30 that I mentioned, that's included there as well. So look at it, that was short and sweet. I hope people got something out of that. You can see my email there. It's pretty easy to remember. If there's any questions, Constanza and any of the members want to contact me directly, I'd happily take on board and try and answer them if I can't answer some of the questions tonight. So that's bmannion@lawwaters.ie. So thanks guys for listening to me there for the last few minutes.